Hey guys, Metal here. I'm a little sick, so apologies if I sound a little bit weird. But anyway, I wanted to talk about something that's been on my mind lately, as I've been watching the discussions around the new Call of Duty Modern Warfare. It's a really great game, I enjoy it immensely, I highly recommend it, so if you want to hear more of my thoughts on the game itself, let me know in the comments. But, it appears as though Call of Duty Modern Warfare has strict skill-based matchmaking, and that's become a major complaint in the Call of Duty community. Some tests have been run, and it looks like it's probably true, and by my own experience, I've got a friend from high school who I like the guy, you know, he's a real nice guy, but he's not very good at video games, and for some reason he has a 1.1 KD, which is within spitting distance of my 1.4 KD, and if I party up with him, that man's gonna go like 2 and 20. He ends up like boosted animal. He can't carry his weight. Again, he's a nice guy. I like him. I'm not like trying to be mean, but you know, he's just not good at video games. It's not his thing. So beyond that, though, you know, it's hard to know how much to the extent the skill-based matchmaking is in play. You know, we can test it, we can kind of guess that it's there. It's pretty obvious that it's there, but it's hard to tell how tight or loose the skill allowance is, or if it has priority over connection. But overall, despite the Call of Duty community being up in arms over the existence of skill-based matchmaking, I do think it's a good game overall for the game. Now, the first point I want to make is that because the game is cross-platform, having good skill-based matchmaking is very important. While I know that some console players, due to a combination of their skill and the game's aim assist, can compete with PC players, I don't think that the average, like the middle skill level console player, would be able to compete with the average middle skill level PC player of their own platforms. PC players tend to get more competitive and tryhardy than consoles in my experience. I used to play Xbox 360 back in the day, now I'm on PC. Unless the whole gaming industry has just changed, it seems as though PC just generally attracts a more competitive, tryhardy, sweaty crowd. I think it's just because there's a lot more shooters and a lot more competitive shooters on PC. But because of that, because just the input and skill disparity between the platforms, the game needs a more universal skill value to assign to players to make sure that if you're going to make a cross-platform lobby, that the PC players aren't going to be way ahead of the console players. A complaint that I often hear about skill-based matchmaking is that it makes the game too hard, that players have to try their hardest all the time to win, or they just lose all the time. To me, the skill-based matchmaking is self-fulfilling. And what I mean by that is if you try your hardest all the time, and the game puts you at the skill level you perform at when you're trying your hardest, then obviously you're going to have to try your hardest to keep winning. People complain about not being able to play casually, but to me it seems like if they were playing casually, they wouldn't have put themselves in a skill bracket where they have to try their absolute best at every game. So it kind of falls apart. If they just played casually, then they'd be put at the skill level they'd be at when they're playing casually, and they wouldn't have to constantly sweat and try their hardest, like they say. So to me, it really more seems like a bunch of people are discovering they're not as good at the game as they like, or they simply want to be able to bully worse players and noobs consistently, constantly trying their hardest to dunk on people who are much worse at the game than they are. And really, nobody is entitled to that. If you want to be able to just demolish people, drop nukes every game, you should have to get good enough that you can do well even when you're faced with players near your skill level. The matchmaking will get to a point where it can't find many people who are better than you, so you will often be the best in the lobby at that point. If the argument is that skill-based matchmaking simply makes you lose all the time, for one, that doesn't even sound consistent with skill-based matchmaking. The first explanation that I would give to somebody if they just told me that they're losing all the time would be that they're below average, and it's random matchmaking, which means that consistently they're going to be better players in the lobby, and you're losing all the time because you're below average. However, I know skill-based matchmaking is in the game, so really, what's probably happening is that A, you tried super hard and got placed at a skill level that's really above where you can perform consistently, and that's going to even out over time, or you're actually just wrong. Someone actually made this argument to me who had a win-loss ratio of a 1.08, and that means that he wins like slightly more games than he loses, like, you know, 51% of his games or 52% of his games, something like that. I'm sure some math nerd's gonna say something. Anyway, so really either it's gonna even itself out if you're constantly losing because you're constantly losing, or you're just not constantly losing. So maybe it's the more competitive side of me talking, but I really do welcome SBMM. I think it makes the game more enjoyable, it makes the game closer. I don't really have a problem trying in a multiplayer shooter. I don't think it should be necessarily relaxing to play a multiplayer shooter. There's plenty of non-competitive games you can play to relax. I've been playing Grand Theft Auto lately with some friends to relax. There's other options that you can play if you just want a more chill experience. Overall, I think that the concerns about skill-based matchmaking are a bit overblown. And, you know, of course, if the skill-based matchmaking is too strict and it's not letting you enjoy the game, there's always other games.
Enemy's taking the hard point. Got the hard point.
Enemy at the
Next
restaurant.
hard point. Let's go.